to order the City Council meeting for May 26th, 2022. Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
David Webb is absent. Kevin Kadada.
Here.
Tim Rude.
Here.
Cindy Fuhr.
Here.
And Scott Palava.
Here.
Okay, tonight's agenda goes through 10E. Is there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
Move we approve the agenda as presented.
Motion by Councilman Kadada.
Second.
Second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes. Consider approval of the minutes from the May 12th, 2022 City Council work session and the May 12th, 2022 regular meeting. Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes?
Move we approve.
Motion by Councilman Kadada,
Second.
second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There are no public hearings. Presentation of citizens' petitions and comments. Comments limited to 2 minutes. So if you're not on the agenda, now is your opportunity to speak. Okay, we have a number of items on the consent agenda tonight. The monthly bills, the treasurer's report, board and commission minutes. Consider approval of a sewer rate adjustment for the property located at 244 8th Avenue Northwest. Consider approval of resolution 2022-31, a resolution accepting the donation in memory of Bob Getting. Consider approval to accept Tom Steiner's letter of resignation as seasonal public works employee. And consider approval to accept Jerry Croyer's letter of resignation as seasonal public works employee. Would anybody like any of those items pulled for discussion?
Move to approve the consent agenda?
Motion by Councilman Palava,
Second.
second by Councilperson Fuhr. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Just want to give a big thank you on behalf of the city to the donation from the Bob Getting family. Nice of him to contribute to the city. On to old business. Discuss Willow Creek Commons Second Edition potential townhome development project. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. We had a work session back on May 12th, and the council, along with the Planning Commission, listened to a presentation by Lance Manty. He is interested in purchasing the lot in question and rezoning it and constructing rental townhomes. There was, I think, good discussion between Mr. Manty, the City Council, and the Planning Commission as well. At the end of the work session, the Planning Commission was directed to discuss it at their upcoming meeting, and the City Council members to think about it, and by the end of the month, kind of come up with I don't want to say consensus, but what their thoughts were on potentially moving forward. This was discussed at the Planning Commission earlier this week. Pardon me, I want to get where did I put my notes on this? Some of the comments from the Planning Commission members earlier this week were some didn't have a problem with it, sees no problem with it. It's definitely needed. Not low-end construction. Good concept. Definitely a planned unit development or PUD to require and allow the ability to enforce design standards. There was some talk about the height, that it's needed. Good project, potentially the wrong location. I think that pretty much summarizes the discussion that was held at the Planning Commission meeting. Overall, it seemed that most of the commissioners would be supportive of rezoning, given the need for that type of housing in Lonsdale. Since that meeting, myself and Mr. Manty have been working on putting together a purchase agreement for the City Council to consider at the June 9th meeting. Obviously dependent on, well, one, what happens tonight later in the agenda, but then also what the council's thoughts are based off of the work session on May 12th, and then just hearing what the the planning commission's thoughts were earlier this week. That's kind of a summary of what's happened since the May 12th work session. I'd be happy to answer any questions and I guess kind of hear what the thoughts of the council members are, and then that would really kind of give Mr. Manti the direction. Obviously, it's not a guaranteed rezone, but I mean, if there's some interest, that's positive for Mr. Manti, and if there's no desire to change it from business to residential, then it's a done deal.
So the plan zoning really had no opinion for a rezone or?
There wasn't an official vote. I believe everybody was on board with entertaining the idea. You know, most were saying it'd be a decent buffer to what's there. It's similar buildings, going from, you know, commercial to higher density to townhomes that are there. My thought is it would definitely need to be a PUD so we could have architectural standards on it to match into the neighborhood and enforce that. But all in all, I think the whole planning and zoning was on board with it.
Okay, Mike, do you have any specific thoughts or any concerns?
I think it is a good fit as far as, you know, buffer wise, you know, going from the, you know, the commercial that Dollar General is, and then, you know, progressing into homes, so it isn't a bad fit.
Right.
How do you propose to treat this like as a small, like a subdivision with development fees and all those kind of things, or are we thinking to treat it as just a lot sale? Thoughts on that?
Well, when the developer lost it to the bank, staff did negotiate with Bremer the completion of payout of the parkland dedication requirements and some other things that obligations that needed to be met per the developer's agreement. As far as fees and things like that, you definitely have your whack and sack, definitely associated with building permits and things like that.
So my question is, so you're, I guess we're in negotiations, it must be relatively close on a purchase agreement. So I assume going on the process then, we would have the PUD requests and the public hearings and all that kind of stuff. What happens if all the neighbors would be against it, or for some reason the PUD got rejected at that time? I mean, is the purchase agreement stipulated upon approval, or how do you handle that?
Well, there definitely will be public hearings, and every property owner within 350 feet will be notified and invited to the public hearing and allowed to comment. You know, depending on what those comments are, you know, may play a factor in the city council's, or maybe even the planning commission's ultimate decision on the rezoning. As far as, you know, requiring a PUD and in the zoning, we're currently working through that now.
Because I mean, I would suspect just naturally, you know, there's a lot of people that would not want anything in their backyard. I mean, not only this site, but any site. So I am sure you're going to have probably some of that.
Definitely, historically, that's just in general
Right.
has been
Right.
kind of the way it's been.
Right. I think you mentioned later on, there's another offer for the same parcel. How do we handle that? We don't actually have the purchase agreement in hand yet. You're working on that, right?
That is correct. I did not hear back from the developer today on some information that was to be included in the purchase agreement. So I'm not sure if that's acceptable to the buyer or needs to be further negotiated.
And just from
And
what
that
I-
information I did provide that to the city council members.
As from what I understand, the secondary offer, second potential buyer, the offer, the price offer is higher. You know, I don't know, I don't know
Correct.
if substantially would be a right term, but it's higher.
It's higher. The-
How do you treat that in negotiations? Does it, is it goes to high bid? Do you put the project up for bids, or do you just negotiate to,
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the buyer, potential buyer has to be comfortable and willing to, you know, to do so. There's other differences between the timing of when the project is required to start.
right?
You know, one is sooner than the other.
Right, right.
I guess without trying to get too deep in the weeds of
Well, I mean,
negotiations.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think in fairness to both parties,
guess-
I mean,
I guess Mr. Manti has said he is willing to, timeline-wise, comply with what the city has had in all the other purchase agreements of the 1-year construction start from the date of closing. The other is longer than that.
I guess just the only thing from the city perspective is I guess, they're both kind of public record anyway, but I think you'd want to, I suppose you're not obligated, but you'd want the prices to be pretty competitive. I mean, it'd be hard to justify selling to somebody lower,
Yeah, say a
substantially,
lower rate.
but that's, I suspect that can be negotiated out, you know. But I think, so right tonight, I guess for either one, you don't have a full-fledged purchase agreement that's acceptable.
I do not know.
So I
I was hoping to have at least one, but that didn't happen.
So I suspect this is gonna have to be tabled, I suppose, until the next council meeting.
Correct.
I'm just wondering, do you have to have some kind of a criteria of saying, was it the one, is it 18 months or is it 12 months for the repurchase agreement?
The city standard language is 12 months.
So I suppose that's part of the criteria, and then,
Depending on that timeline, how much in that gap time, so to speak, is, will the city generate in property taxes?
right. So you got a few criterias, and you got, and like I said, the price, you gotta deal with that, and so I don't know if you set a deadline for both offers, whatever.
Yep. In my discussions with Mr. Manti, the plan is to present a purchase agreement to the city council at the June 9th meeting.
And I guess all I'm trying to do is make sure we're fair about things, that's all I'm saying. Maybe you say both parties have to have their, the meeting is the 9th, is it?
Correct.
So maybe you pick whatever that Friday is, you want both offers in or out, your best offer, so you got basically a spreadsheet, so it's comparable, and
Yep.
so we have a choice, it'd be kinda
Yep,
hard to.
absolutely.
I think that's fair.
I think, or, is it an option to put the piece out for bids? And then besides the two parties who are interested, there have been other parties who expressed interest and were a little disappointed when, then they didn't get the opportunity to purchase. That's, I would think that could be an option.
This section of property is for sale online right now, correct?
It's on CoStar. From June of last year through the end of 21, it was listed on LoopNet, which was a paid service that we paid for. CoStar is just a free service, and it is on there. Technically, it's been for sale since 2005,
What?
2004.
Yeah, I guess the
And
point is that.
and heavily marketed the last, definitely the last year.
Right.
But but you raise kind of a good point, because locally, I don't know how many people are aware that it's for sale. For example, I think, didn't the proposed maybe car wash got kind of turned down on Monday night. Would they have interest in that? I think all we're saying, we just want to maximize,
Yes.
Well, you want get the best deal for the city.
right, that's all we're after.
That's- Yes.
And I think from what I gather between P and Z and us, we're okay with housing, we're okay with business, I think we just want somebody to build something, right? We want to move the city forward. So, yeah, I don't know how
what would the process be for a bid process? Would that have to do a public hearing before we would send that out for bids? Being it is city property, or?
There wouldn't be a public hearing required. We would just have to determine where we wanted to advertise it.
Okay.
The city's website, the newspaper, Facebook.
Mhm. I mean, it's not a bad idea, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, you just wanna be fair about things,
Mhm.
you know, and I don't know how many people in town even knew that parcel itself is for sale. And I suppose you could, you know, they could assume that, but, you know, why would you assume it's for sale, you know? How long would it have to be advertised? I mean, could that be something that's quickly? I mean, could it be, you know?
Yeah, I don't, there's no requirement that we have to advertise it, so it could be for really as long of a period that the council wanted. You know, the soonest that it would be able to go in the paper would be probably June 7th would be the next publication. We wouldn't hit the deadline for Tuesday, but June 1st,
Right.
31st.
Mhm. We'll be looking at the second meeting in June, which will be fine.
If we could do that, I suppose. So yeah, so if you had it advertised for even, whatever, 15 days or something, or, I mean, if we wanna go down that path. I mean,
Would we have these same kind of parameters in place then, that the buyer would have to build something within X time and, okay.
right, right. I mean, I just, you know, and without, you know, disclosing too much, but, I mean, some of this is public record, of course, but right now it would appear that the townhome offer is lower than the business offer.
As of right now, correct.
Right, and that's not to say that the townhome lands couldn't adjust his bid or whatever. I just think you'd wanna be, just so it's fair about things. You know, let's say, you know, one party would raise their bid to $1 more than the other because now it's public record.
Right.
Well, then you got, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, you know, I think we're all for Lance to build it, you know. But,
What costs are we looking at if it was rezoned? What type of costs are incurred for that? Other than recording fees and stuff like that?
Well, as far as to rezone it, I guess staff would recommend that be paid for by the buyer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
so if you have competing
And then
offers.
you've got, you know, the closing costs and stuff, those are, you know, pretty standard, typically split 50-50, or the, you know, the seller, you know, has to purchase a title commitment, and, you know, that's pretty standard language.
So I suspect the buyer, like I mentioned, he'd submit an offer pending approvals. So even if he had the offer, and he wouldn't necessarily get it until you had the public hearings, right?
Right.
Correct.
And that would be, what, 30 days after, or you have to advertise for 30 days or something? Or rough?
Well, it would have to be advertised in the paper for, I think, it's 10 days, 10-day minimum notice to everyone within 350 feet. And that would be the extent of that.
Right.
Typically, you know, the planning commission is meeting is it the third or
Third.
last Monday?
Yep.
So staff is pretty adamant about having all submittals and application by the first of the month. That allows us time to review everything, make recommendations or what have you, and then get it to the paper.
So, I guess just to sum up then, so we could accept, you know, let's say Lance's high bid, for example, we could accept his bid or his purchase agreement pending the public hearing.
Yes, you could.
Right, if we accept that, and then if the public hearing goes well or approved, then we just go down the path. And if it's denied, then you'd go to, I suppose, the next bid or whatever.
The next bid, or he could decide to still purchase it.
Right, well, that's right, either way, and then just, okay. I mean, that's probably the fairest way to
Yeah.
do it, I imagine, but.
That way we know we put it out there and got the best money for it.
Right. So this is just to discuss, I suppose we're gonna need some type of a motion for action if we're going to, or we just continue the discussion on E after we review that too, I guess.
Yeah, really, it was kind of a, the direction given at the May 12th meeting was to discuss it and kind of, not guarantee, but, see what the temperature was as far as the potential rezone, and,
Right.
Then at that point, Mr. Manti has to decide if he wants to proceed or not.
Right. So I guess just to answer that, it seems like it's positive, from what I'm understanding, we're okay with it, and that's all good.
So yes, then I can follow up with both potential buyers, inform them what happened tonight, our discussion, and go from there.
And then additionally, would you still be able to advertise it and put it out for bids, or would you go down that path, or would you not? do
I
that?
certainly can, yes. I guess if the council does want to do that, I probably should make a motion to advertise it, and
I think it does make the most sense.
And like you said, maybe it doesn't matter, but at least you put the effort, you know.
We need to lay out a timeline or just let that play out with required notifications or?
so our last meeting in June would be June 30th. So if it got to the paper, if it was advertised initially June 7th, could advertise it the 7th, the 14th.
I mean, I suppose you have a special
ha-
meeting if you're anxious to get a decision.
Have bids due, I'm just thinking if you wanted to advertise for 10 days or 2 weeks, you'd probably want bids due the 21st. Packet goes out the 24th for the 30th. I mean, that would be the soonest you could get it done.
I mean, you hate to delay it, but there's still the factor, like I say, what if the public hearing didn't go well, for
Mhm.
example? Then you're still. All right, any more thoughts?
Same.
Right. So we'd be looking for a motion to go down the path of a bid is what you're looking for?
Correct. So the main thing that the council's looking for is the price,
Basically.
and
You
then
just wanna
whatever,
make sure we got
then
the best
whatever
fair price, right?
differences or potential differences there are between the purchase agreements will just have to be evaluated
Right.
at that time.
Right, and it looks like they're pretty similar, it just the repurchase agreement and.
Yeah, there's 2 or
So
3
it's- yeah.
differences.
Right.
Right.
And make a motion, we go down the road to have this parcel bid out.
Motion by Councilman Canada,
Second?
second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval of Mary Jo Turick's letter of resignation as a administrative assistant. Ms. Turek?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Get to where I need to be now. Mary Jo Turek has submitted her letter of resignation as administrative assistant. She's worked with the city of Lonsdale for a little over 10 years. I believe she started in February of 2012. She was the initial voice heard at City Hall when the phone rang. She was instrumental in water billing each month, including shutoffs, which isn't always the funnest thing to do. So she deserves definitely a lot of credit for dealing with residents and following through on that process. She assisted with scheduling in receiving payments for utility inspections, park reservations, ordering office supplies, just helping out as needed from various departments that had a connection to City Hall. Worked with building permits, with the city planner and our building inspector. Again, she was a big help getting iWorks, our online building permit software, up and running last year. And also she assisted the city treasurer and liquor store manager with financial items. This is just some of the main things that she did. There was a lot of other things as well, on just kind of depending on how the day went. She was a good employee, dedicated to the city. We definitely wish her the best as she enters the next phase of her life. We will be reviewing the current job description to determine if it's current or needs to be updated. As far as the fiscal impact, obviously being down the staff at City Hall, there'll be 3 of us, so we'll be working more hours. The city planner and myself are exempt employees, so we don't receive overtime. It is anticipated the city treasurer will receive overtime just for utility billing, and we'll all be helping out on whatever needs to be done in addition to our daily tasks. In regards to alternatives, there really isn't any. She did resign, and then attached with the staff report is her letter of resignation.
Yeah, 10 years is a long time. She did good.
Make a motion to approve Mary Jo Turk's letter of resignation.
Motion by Councilman Palava,
Second?
second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I would suspect at the next meeting you'll have job descriptions and applications, all that good stuff.
Correct.
Thank you. Thanks again to Mary Jo Turk. Consider approval to make a conditional job offer to John Broughton Anderson as a firefighter, Dave Fluke, Fire Chief. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Interview committee was conducted interviews May 17th to put 2 new members on the department. The committee consisted of Assistant Chief Scott Stika, Captain Casey Greger, firefighter Nicole Smith, and firefighter Eric Malika. We conducted 3 interviews. We originally had 4 applicants. 1 pulled out because of a change in his job, but he probably would be a future candidate. He's still interested, he just had a change of jobs. They recommended to me that John Broughton Anderson be offered a conditional position on a department. If you okay his conditional offer, I guess the next step would be he'd go through, or all applicants would go through a criminal background check and then a physical to see if they're fit to be a firefighter. And at the conclusion of these, if they're both positive, then they would move forward. Upon successful completion of background and physical, they'll become a probationary member. Medical training will start in September. Typically, fire school starts probably November, December. We anticipate new members would get on in the July 5th meeting. I guess at this point, I'm asking that you offer John Broughton Anderson a conditional job offer on the Lonsdale Fire Department.
So moved.
Go ahead.
Motion by Councilperson Fear.
Second.
Second by Councilman Kadada. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval to make a conditional job offer to Jaden Dubon as firefighter. Chief.
Yep, again, Jaden was involved in the previous mentioned interviews. There again, he would, upon completion of a criminal background check and positive physical, he'd be offered to go forward with his probationary duties as a firefighter. I am asking that you offer Jaden Dubon a conditional job offer with the Lonsdale Fire Department.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Palava,
Second.
second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 3 generations of Dubons.
Yep.
Just saying, I'm just saying.
I would have thought after the first one, they would have had enough.
Well, we survived 2, so, no, hey, Jaden's, they're both very energetic
Yeah.
on wanting to get on, so I think they'll both be good fits.
Good. Good. I'm glad you have enough firefighters. It takes a lot of work to volunteer nowadays.
Yep, yep, and it keeps getting more and more, but,
Does that bring you to full staff then?
yes, it will.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Good.
I have a little side note. About a week ago, I came across an accident, first one on the scene. And Montgomery Ambulance was there, right
Yes.
behind, first on scene after we were. And Lonsdale Fire Department was there doing the extrication and all of that. I witnessed them firsthand and second to none. I mean, you guys did a great job, professional. It's something I never really witnessed up personal, and they did a very good job.
Well, I kept you on scene on purpose.
I
just so you-
suppose. You can tell everybody that was there, they did a great
No,
job.
yeah, and we appreciate that.
Yeah. Even got a junior firefighter sticker.
You get the little plastic.
No hand.
We can arrange that.
Right. But again, tell them,
I
very
will.
good job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Consider approval of Resolution 2022-32, a resolution accepting a bid for the 2022 Trail Improvement Project. Nick Williams, City Engineer.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. This item is a request from staff to award a construction contract to Crane Creek Asphalt for the 2022 Trail Improvements Project in the amount of $49,257.25. This project was identified from our trail condition survey that was completed and also through some field reviews by staff. Scope of the project includes rehabilitation of the trail on Fig Street on the south side between 6th Avenue and 8th Avenue. This segment was again selected based on the survey condition that we had. Joel and I and Russ had looked at some of the trails throughout the city, and this seemed like a really good candidate based on the budget that was available. Crane Creek was the only contractor to submit a quote, but they did come in under the engineer's estimate. They are contractors in general, just very busy these days, and with Crane Creek already being in town, they were able to bid that very competitively with they have 3 different projects they're working on here as we speak. So funding is budgeted available from the park fund, the amount of $70,000. Alternative tonight would be to not award a construction contract. It is staff's recommendation to award a construction contract to Crane Creek Asphalt in the amount of $49,257.25 for the 2022 Trail Improvements Project. That concludes staff's report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
This is something that was budgeted, and the trails are starting to be a high priority, that's for sure, of repair. So I think at this point, we would enter into contract to Crane Creek and to get the project done.
Motion by Councilman Kadada,
Second.
second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider Resolution 2022-33, a resolution approving a purchase agreement between the City of Lonsdale and ALG Enterprises LLC. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Well, with the discussion that was held on a previous agenda item, on the same parcel, the council provided staff direction to advertise the parcel for sale, so we will do that. I guess at this point, the council would have the option to either motion to not approve the purchase agreement or table it.
I think at this point, this purchase agreement would be not approved in my mind, correct? If we're going out to bids,
Right, I assume we wouldn't accept it, right?
or do we want to table it and try to work off the bid, or just start over with both?
I guess we could table it. I mean, you got a minimum bid anyway, I guess, a minimum offer.
They can always withdraw it
Right.
if it's,
Right,
if they don't wanna, go this direction.
right, right. I don't know, I mean, we can certainly table it, I guess, yeah. It's fine.
I'll move to table resolution 2022-33.
Motion by Councilman Palava,
Second?
by Councilperson Fuhrer to table said resolution. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the planned agenda. On to department reports. Mr. Williams, anything else?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Construction is progressing well on several projects throughout the city. The 2022 street improvement project is going well. Water main work is completed in the first phase. They're going to start the second phase. Everything's on schedule. Been no hiccups yet, so hopefully there won't be any, but everything's going really well. 11th Avenue sanitary sewer repairs began this week as well. They did complete that first repair this week. They did find another area of pipe that had been crushed while they were there when we televised it, so we had them fix that, obviously. There'll be a little cost increase associated with that, but we did get it fixed, and then they're gonna move on to the second repair next week. And then the mill and overlay project is nearly done. The paving happened today, actually, so industrial on 4th Avenue. Should have that wrapped up, and then just some restoration work, and we'll be done with that project as well. So that's all I had.
Good. Good. A lot of activity, that's for sure. Thank you, sir. Mr. Erickson?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Well, we had the special election to fill the vacant seat in Congressional District 1. On Tuesday, earlier this week, we had a whopping 5.2% voter turnout. So there was a lot of slow time. I am soliciting for election judges. The current judges that I have are interested, but we'll be advertising for some more. We've got a budget meeting Monday, June 6th at 6 o'clock. I guess just a quick update on the seasonals. Let's see. One of the applicants that was made a conditional job offer successfully passed the background check. He will start on Wednesday. An applicant that was previously interested said that he had obtained another job. That didn't work out, so I believe he is going to be starting here shortly. And we advertised at TCU in the high school announcements, and actually received an application at the end of today. So we'll be interviewing that applicant early next week and bringing him to the council as soon as we can for, pending obviously, interview and review the job application. But that would kind of be the timeline if that works out. Last week attended a regional economic development meeting for Southeast Minnesota, participated in the comprehensive economic development strategy plan. That's a requirement to get grants from the Federal Economic Development Agency. And then, I'm sure Scott will talk about this, but we've got our PD punch list walkthrough tomorrow morning.
Good. Well, thank you for all your work. I know you're gonna be pretty overwhelmed with being short-staffed here for a while, so I guess whatever we can do to expedite the process, or, if you wanna bring up any of those items on one of the special meetings, we certainly can do that, if that helps, or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any temp agencies we could hire on for that in the meantime?
That would be a possibility. I could look into that as well. Probably by the time that, maybe it's not jumping into water billing, maybe someone else does that, but, you know, if it was to take over those responsibilities, that would be a, you know, probably wouldn't even fully understand what the computer software was to process, to actually do the billing process. It takes almost a week
Sure.
Yeah, I bet.
to process it and print the bills and everything, so it's
Okay.
pretty much the first 5-6 days of the month.
Is that something we could sub out? The billing part, rather than doing it in-house?
We could look into it. I guess I'm not sure if other cities do that, or if there are firms that do that.
Well, well, you'll have Mary Jo tell them what's the 10th, right, so you have them for
Yep,
a
so,
little bit.
so we'll get through this billing cycle. So the first billing cycle that we have will be the first week of, I'm hoping that it's only 2 billing cycles that we have to get through. It'll be the first week of July and August.
So you're thinking of having somebody on board within 60 days or something like that? or-
Typically, it takes about, with advertising and interviewing and depending on, you know, where they're at currently, it takes a minimum of 6 weeks to get someone from the date that it's advertised to on board.
Right, okay. Okay, well, thank you for all your work again. Councilman Kadada, anything tonight?
Monday, we had a park board meeting, and planning and zoning as well. But park board, we went over a few things. The soccer field layout is all marked out at Trichka Park. There are a couple fields that are being used over at Rayan Acres also for the 8 and under. It's more of a practice league there. Just have a big soccer number for the kids. We are working on our budget. The Willow Creek Trail is going to remain closed. The one that got milled off for a little bit here yet till it dries out and we can actually get in there and do some work. And we are entertaining the idea of putting up a few disc golf, I don't know if you'd call them holes or what do you really call them, but disc golf over at Kalina Park. Start with 3 or 4 and see if it's well received, and if it is, then we will branch off of that.
Interesting, nice.
That was basically it for parks. Planning and zoning, we went over the townhomes. That was one of them. We went over the broadband. If you remember a few years back, we had those broadband issues with the wiring. That got voted to not enforce that anymore, being that it couldn't be enforced anyhow. So that is probably, I would think, next meeting coming to the council to get final approval on that. And there was a proposed zoning change for Rolling Ridge Marketplace, and that was denied at planning and zoning. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the denial, is that kind of dead in the water then, or is that, you know?
I believe it'll come to city council for the final approval or denial. But planning and zoning did deny that. There are different sites in town that would work as a permitted use without any rezoning or anything like that. So
Right,
basically planning and zoning denied that and
okay,
referred to which ones they would work on.
okay. Thank you, sir. Councilperson Fear?
Well, the EDA met last week, and we had an update on our digital marketing, also the business retention and expansion program. We are working on a small cities development grant that will help the residential and businesses do improvements to their homes and business. And then we started working on our 2023 budget.
Good, thank you.
Thank
for
you.
your work. Thank you for your work as election judge. I think you had a somewhat busy day.
Somewhat busy, yes.
Thank you, Councilman Palava.
As Joel mentioned, police department facility, punch list, we're getting to that point. We have that meeting tomorrow, the curb and gutter and first layer of blacktop was on. I think they were saying the second lift is scheduled for next week. Got a couple things we gotta work through with that. Still some delays of some things, but they're not going to be super critical. We'll still be able to open and operate anticipated July date. So, yeah, we're gonna well, there'll be some updates and stuff like that after we've already moved in, but it'll be functional.
A nice looking building, though.
It is really nice looking. The signage is in final production and scheduled to be delivered soon. And yeah, it's pretty cool when you walk in there now.
Yeah, I
It's,
bet.
Every week, it's been a pretty amazing transformation, so.
A little different than existing.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think even the building inspector, or building official said that, he says, considering what they have right now, we can give them a little bit of leeway until everything is squared away.
I suppose we should figure out the procedure for the existing building. I mean, ideally, you'd like to sell that before winter, if you could.
Yep, that'll be one of the topics at our first budget meeting.
Oh, okay.
That was an item on a previous work session that we didn't get to, so.
Right.
Yep, again, the council will have to decide. It's currently zoned public facility, so that's so basically, only government can use it. So the council's gonna have to decide how, you want residential, you want business, what use do you want? Staff's recommendation would be to rezone it to what you guys want, so then when it is bid on, everyone knows what the requirements are and what the uses are.
Sure, sure. Okay, well, I don't have too much other than Memorial Day on Monday, and the Legion Commander Dale Reed contacted me. They have kind of the same procedure. They're going to the Vesley Cemetery and the two here in Lonsdale, and they're gonna have a presentation at the Veterans Memorial, and then lunch at the Legion afterwards. But it's a pretty nice program that they all put on, especially Daryl. They read the names of a lot of the veterans from previous wars from this area, and I think they got them all the way back to, I think, was there one from the Civil War or something, I think is what I recall. But it's a great presentation, so if anybody can stop down there Monday morning, I'm sure they'd like to see you. But with that, that's about all I have.
Move wager?
Motion by Councilman Kadada.
Second.
Second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.